Welcome back to Square Off. This year's SRP election was unusual in many ways. One of them was the unprecedented amount of money and people that the right-wing activist group Turning Point Action threw behind its slate of candidates. The result was not what Turning Point expected, it appears. Its top two candidates for president and vice president won, which was expected. But the clean energy slate, as you heard already, has the power. So why did this race backfire on Turning Point? But could its efforts pay off in the midterms? The politics panel steps in. Christine Jones, attorney and former Republican candidate for governor, and Matt Grodzki, Democratic consultant at Matters of State Strategies. Welcome back to Square Off. So Turning Point spent money on ballot chasers, even ballot harvesting, and the irony there is just delicious, given its criticism of ballot harvesting over the years. Why did they come up so short?
Well, first of all, we don't use the H word. That's kind of like a four-letter word to us, Bram. But I think they spent a little less than $1 million on this race. They thought that giving the board or having it captured by the green energy people was dangerous because the green energy is much more expensive and it's difficult to deploy, and we've shut down Palo Verde, and we can get into all that if you want. But I think the reason they came up short is because their $900,000 against 14 years of the Jane Pack and the Sierra Club spending multiple millions was just not enough to get their voice loud enough. And I know it's fun to kick people when they're down, and Turning Point appears to be a little bit off center right now, but that's a temporary condition for them. They're so powerful and they're so effective at door knocking. I think they're going to come back with.
We'll come back to that in a bit. Your analysis.
Yeah, I think that they didn't know how to run in this race, right? And I think they were very obnoxious with a lot of the voters. And I think, to your point, yes, there's a lot of money that's been floating around for the past decade. But I think we can't take anything away from the candidates that did succeed. They knew what their voters wanted. They knew that people didn't want to pay more. They knew that people wanted common sense solutions to energy. So I think that resonated more with some of the hyperbolic stuff that Turning Point was pushing. But I agree with your point, right? I think that this is a victory temporarily, but this is an organization that has resources, unfortunately, to take a lot of at-bats, strike out a lot, and learn, right? And eventually they're going to catch, and get a good hit here. So we can't let our guard down as Democrats or folks that are opposed to Turning Point.
What about the climate they were all playing in right now? Concern about water, concern about data centers. That certainly had to inform a lot of the votes. And as we heard before, Turning Point basically publicized an election nobody really pays attention to, and in that got out the vote for the other side.
Yeah, I think they shot themselves in the foot on that. I think they over-elevated it, right? Everybody was aware of it, and it gave the opposition, the opportunity to jump in and say, hey, don't let these guys take control of the board. So, again, we'll take the win. The candidates that were successful did a great job, but can't relax, right? Especially as we move towards legislative races and statewide elections.
I want to get Tyler Boyer's comment in. He is the apparent mastermind of the Turning Point campaign. He basically declared victory. In a post, he said, Democrats had told donors this was the inevitable year they would win president and vice president of SRP and control the agenda. They failed massively with a huge turnout, more than 4 times normal turnout. Ballot chasing worked. Again, I think this speaks to the point that he doesn't understand how the board works. And granted, many of us didn't. Again.
And some people still don't. It's complex, right? You're talking about 30 seconds of a fraction of something that you get to vote in this, which is weird, right? But I think the thing to urge the caution for the Democrats is they're not going anywhere. They are extremely well funded, and they only need to wait 2 years to take this board back, and they probably will, because despite what you just heard Lauren Kuby saying, this energy is not cheaper. It is going to raise rates for SRP customers. By definition, it's a mathematical certainty. And if we know anything, the Democrats have told us affordability matters, and people do not want to pay more for energy.
And that's why the strategy needs to pivot to how do you retain this, right? How do you take this momentum and move forward so that it's not going backwards in a couple of years, right? But I love his spin. That's so adorable. So
yeah, I do, though I do want to follow up, not right now, obviously, but this whole issue of natural gas and the soaring cost of natural gas and how that could affect prices going forward over the next several months or maybe even 2 years. That could all change the whole equation.
We should have that conversation. And the height of irony is the Sierra Club coming in to try to shut down Palo Verde, which they did, which was the cheapest and the cleanest form of energy in Arizona. And now they're going to come back and try to reopen it. It's going to take us till 2040, maybe 2036, if the administration fast tracks it. And we have to use natural gas as a stopgap, which is more expensive yet. Like, come on, Sierra Club. You guys call us Neanderthals. You are expecting us to take care of the clean energy piece, which is really ironic.
Next,
Just want to make that point.
Next time, I'll invite Sierra Club instead
I was
of
just going to say, yeah, you need another chair here to get their spokesperson.
I'm sorry, just had to get
Give
that
them
in
a
there.
chance.
I want to get to, I think, what you were saying. There's a school of thought. Turning Point was using this as kind of a warm-up, a tune-up for the midterms just a few months from now.
Whoops.
Especially in the East Valley, Andy Biggs, Heartland, candidate for governor. You buy that?
Yeah, but I do think that the risk for them, and I'm sure that they recognize it, they've tied their brand to the MAGA brand. And right now the MAGA brand is in the trash can, right? The president's approval ratings are down. Republicans are not popular. People are angry about soaring costs. So there's a risk, not just for Turning Point, but candidates that tie themselves to this administration in other races, legislative, statewide, right? Now, as Democrats, we've got a lovely voter registration gap that we need to contend with, so you got to be cautiously optimistic, and that's why you got to keep doing the work, right?
What a great segue for me.
Perfect.
So Health and Human Services Secretary Robert F. Kennedy Jr. was in Arizona this past week, headlined a fundraiser for 1st Congressional District candidate Jay Feely. It was an Andy Biggs event, Biggs running for governor. Why do Republicans want to tie themselves to RFK Jr.?
Bram, I don't know, but I love it. You know, I don't know why they think the guy that sounds like Emperor Palpatine is like the best spokesperson for them, but just keep doing it. You know, we're totally fine with it.
Okay.
Invite him.
Throw shade on people's medical conditions. That's a great way to start. And I think
I don't think he believes in medical conditions. So
I think what's going on here is Biggs is he's an ideologue, but he's a pragmatist, and this is about math, right? So he already has the Republicans. Your guy already has the Democrats. We're all fighting over the middle. And with respect to some of the things that he really deeply cares about, RFK Jr. brings some of those numbers. So this is just simple math for Biggs. He doesn't want to tie himself to the guy that wears jeans to hike up Camelback. What even is that? He gets in an ice bath with blue jeans on. The guy's weird, but Biggs needs the numbers.
I think they should keep rolling the dice on it.
Okay.
Keep him coming.
With those thoughts, I got to end it. Jeans on Camelback. Wow. Matt Grodzki, Christine Jones, thanks so much for joining us.
Thank you.
Graham.